Hi everybody, it's Friday here in New Zealand. Welcome to Lorraine Scapens Fitness and Wellness for Women. And today we are going to be briefly chatting about should you be relaxing or contracting your pelvic floor muscles, not only during exercise but throughout the day, etc. And we're going to look at pregnancy, postpartum, and of course perimenopause, because with each of our journeys that we go on, we do need to think about things a little differently. Now, a big key question is, should everybody be contracting their pelvic floor muscles and doing Kegels? Absolutely not. Not everybody should be focusing on these muscles. And if you do that and have this blanket approach, and especially postpartum and during pregnancies, then you can increase the symptoms rather than decrease things and actually make things much worse. So how do you know what's the best way to connect with your pelvic floor muscles during exercise, and for you and at what stage you're at in your special journey? All right, so first of all, we need to think about the pelvic floor muscles as a group of muscles. They're a ball of muscles. So let's think of that structure here, just like so, round this balloon. So what they need to do, they need to contract and relax all the time. And they're doing that constantly, hopefully, without us even thinking about it when we're breathing. So when we inhale, they relax. And then when we exhale, they contract. So it's constantly this that's happening with our diaphragm sitting nicely at the top, pelvic floors at the bottom, transverse wrapping around here, and multifidus at the back. So your pelvic floor muscles are sitting in that nice bowl below. So what we need is a pelvic floor that is flexible. It's going to move when we cough. It's going to lift up to help us hold in our wheeze when we laugh, when we jump. So it's moving the whole time. Now with pregnancy, those pelvic floor muscles with the weight of your baby can just stretch a little bit to accommodate your growing uterus and growing baby. So they just tend to stretch a little bit. Therefore, they're getting a little bit longer. So we may need to contract them and focus on them a little bit more postpartum. Now, how do we find out if we are what we call high tone, where those muscles aren't really moving, so they're over-contracted, or they're almost kind of low tone and too much movement and creating symptoms? Okay, so let's split them up, because this is where it can get a little bit confusing. Okay, so not everybody needs to contract them. So we're either on one side or the other, or we can be a little bit of both and on different sides of the pelvic floors. Okay, so that can get a little bit confusing as well. But let's group it together. High tone, too tight; low tone, a little bit too loose. Now, those of us with low tone or damaged pelvic floor muscles can experience leaking when we cough or laugh, when we're about to go to the toilet, so we can't hold on for long periods, when we jump, etc. We constantly need to be thinking about our pelvic floor muscles to help stop us and prevent us from leaking. Okay, so they're the main ones with that low tone pelvic floor muscle. Now, high tone has got quite a different set of symptoms, but also they can cross over as well, which can lead to you doing contractions when you need to be relaxing. So what are the main symptoms of hypertonic pelvic floor muscles? So painful sex is the biggie. All my clients I've come across with hypertonic pelvic floor muscles tend to have painful intercourse. So that is definitely a leading symptom. Abdominal pain, pelvic pain, deep pelvic pain throughout the day, like almost like a feeling like a strained muscle, can be quite deep within the pelvic, round through the adductor, so you can feel that. Feeling when you go to the toilet that you can't fully empty and your bladder is quite irritated. You may also be constipated. Now, also with a full bladder, you may also leak. So that's where those symptoms start to kind of cross over as well. Now, the two biggies. So if you're low tone, let's go this way. Okay, so we need to start to contract those muscles and low tone. You need to think about contracting at the front on as you exhale through your exercise throughout the day, but then you still need to focus on the relax. Those of you with a high tone pelvic floor that won't move need to just focus on your transverse abdominals during exercise and a complete relax and let down on an inhale. Now, the best exercise to give you the variables of both of those and what to do during them is a squat. Okay, so for those of us who need to think about contracting our pelvic floor muscles, depending on the stage, it also depends on if there's a possible prolapse there. You're going to breathe in on the way down. At the bottom, you're going to think about the lift at the front. Remember, we're thinking lifting with our pelvic floor muscles, feeling like, excuse me, we're stopping a tampon from falling out. So it's a lift. And we exhale and come up from the squat. So we're breathing in, not thinking too much. When we're exhaling, we're thinking pelvic floor lift. Breathe in, pelvic floor lift. Breathe in, pelvic floor lift. Now, for those of you who with hypertonic pelvic floor muscles, you're going to breathe in, focus, relaxing, stretching the pelvic floor muscles on the way down. Then when you come up, you're just going to think about your transverse to help with your back support. So you just think transverse on the way up. Breathe in, you're thinking relaxing pelvic floor muscles on your squat down. Coming up, transverse. All right, so completely different. Now, you can have these different symptoms throughout the different phases. Okay, so pregnancy, you may feel, okay, and start to notice, especially if you people who are kind of more at risk yes. So around about, when I see clients, I see 10 to 12 clients in antenatal classes, kind of every 6 weeks. So we get quite a lot of people who I can assess. And I would say generally, from the women that I see and members in the gym, around about 30 to sometimes 40% of women can have hypertonic floor muscles. Okay, then kind of around about similar can have the low tone. Few of the others, okay, don't need to think about it at all. Okay, so they're fine. They're perfect pelvic floor muscles that contract and relax without thinking about it. No leaking, no symptoms, etc. So you don't need to be overly thinking about them unless, of course, things start to change later on down the track. So pregnancy, who's kind of those ones who are probably high risk? Runners, gymnasts, CrossFit, high loading athletes. If you've been very, very stressed, tension, stressful job, internal stress, grief, etc. Stress, tension, over exercise can accumulate stress, which means we take it up through our hips, we take it up into our pelvic floor muscles, and without realizing it, we can't move our pelvic floor muscles. So a good exercise, what I get all the women to do at our antenatal groups, is to do a contract and relax whilst they're sitting down with me. Okay, and again, this is good feedback for you. If you can feel like you can contract, pick up that raisin on the exhale with your pelvic floor muscles and feel a difference on the inhale. So you can basically feel this elevator happening with your pelvic floor muscles. That's a good technique. So you can feel something happening at the front and you can feel the relax. If you're a bit confused and thinking, Lorraine, I'm not sure I can feel anything, that could mean that they're already overly contracted, so you can't actually lift them up anymore and you can't focus on the relax. And then if you're kind of suffering with any of the other symptoms I've suggested as well, then you could think, okay, possibly I need to start focusing on relaxing my pelvic floor. So if that's you during your pregnancy, I get all mums to start to work on relaxing exercises from 30 weeks. You can follow our programs. It's all out in those, in the Fit to Birth Mum program, specifics on pelvic floor, relaxing, okay, so that we can push our babies out and we can connect and relax our pelvic floors in order to push our babies out. Okay, then postpartum. Okay, so we've just talked a little bit about stress and trauma. So you all know when we kind of, I'm going to draw on the front of this, okay? If we cut ourselves or we have some scar tissue, okay, so if we have a cut and some scar tissue, this is creating scar tissue. So what happens is the rest of the skin and the connective tissue around it kind of almost pull out and come away to allow this to heal. So sometimes with birth trauma, 2nd and 3rd to 4th degree tears, your pelvic floor muscles may have gone hypertonic to pull away from your scar tissue, okay? So they may actually need relaxing, massaging internally to start to help things relax and feel a little bit more normal down there. So again, let's think of those symptoms. Let's think of your birth as to know what you need to be doing in your rehab program postpartum. And of course, Birth to Fit Mum will guide you through that. But it's just, I just really want you all to know, those of you who are online, and you can drop me any questions, put me some questions in the comments below, that you know from today if you've got an idea if you should be contracting your pelvic floor muscles or if you should be relaxing. Okay, so if you're kind of at the stage, well, not necessarily myself, because I had pelvic floor trauma, which you can't change with my first birth. So I constantly am always going to have to think about my pelvic floor muscles. But as we age and as we start to get over 38 and especially into our 40s with perimenopause, that connective tissue basically starts to go like this. Okay, so it's starting to get wrinkly, just like our skin, my skin here. Okay, so this is kind of what's happening internally. So the structures of our pelvis and our pelvic floor muscles are starting to get a little bit saggy and can start to need more help again to keep our internal organs in place, because our internal organs are all up through here and it's our core's job to try and keep them in place and to keep them up so we're not at risk of prolapse. So we may need to start to think about our pelvic floor muscles as we start to age and as things start to change with our hormones and our estrogen and testosterone starts to decrease, as again, because that results in a reduction in our elasticity in our connective tissue. It's all great for us, isn't it? So hopefully that's answered a lot of questions, possible concerns. So please, if you're following a program that's not specific postpartum and all you're hearing is contracting your pelvic floor muscles and not either or and or, then, and your symptoms are increasing, maybe start to think about what I've suggested. So what you need to do, and what I say to my mums, is I go through symptoms with them, again online as well, talking to members. And if you do think you're kind of more so on the hypertonic, if you can see a pelvic floor health specialist, that's ideal. Also, either way, also, because I can only give you an idea, let you know how to feel for things, etc. But I can't do internals, etc. to give you the exact guide so you know where you are. And as I mentioned just at the start, it's not uncommon to have hypertonic pelvic floor muscles on one side and okay on the other side, okay? And this again can depend on your births, etc., and how you carry stress. Do remember that your glutes for low tone pelvic floor muscles are your pelvic floor muscles' best friends, because those glutes, as we can see, if we can see here, if we've got good glutes, can help lift up low tone pelvic floor muscles. But again, if we're maybe overtraining the glutes, stress, women carry a lot of stress through their glutes so much in our hips. We carry a lot of grief in our glutes. If we're constantly over contracting the glutes, then that could actually lead to the hypertonic pelvic floor muscles as well. So it's about getting a balance and knowing how your body is and how it's feeling. Okay, hi Neely. What does it mean if I have no leakage when I jump or run or lift or squeeze, but then maybe the next day or day after my pelvic floor feels loose? Okay, so that's quite an interesting one. What does it mean if I have no leakage when I jump? Okay, your pelvic floor muscles may feel irritated through different foods that we eat and when we don't drink enough and hydrate. So I'm just going to go with a few things. So coffee can be kind of like a stimulant for your pelvic floor muscles and make you feel like you want to go to the toilet. So does sugar. And if you drink high volumes rather than drinking water through the day, it can lead to irritation in our pelvic floor muscles and feel like we want to go more so than what we would do normally. So that's why it's really important that we're looking at our nutrition and good toileting habits. So making sure, again, which is hard as busy mums, that we are going to the toilet kind of around between every 2 to 2.5 hours. I would have a look at, Neely, what kind of exercise that you're doing and how you're kind of describing loose. Does it feel any heaviness? Is there any ache in there? Would you actually leak that following day? Does it mean that do you need to feel connected to your pelvic floor muscles to kind of keep that function? So they're the questions I'd kind of be asking yourself. Not heavy or aches, but yes, sometimes leakage, and yet you wouldn't get them. Okay, I definitely check with toileting habits. It may also mean that when you're exercising that you could be possibly holding on to your pelvic floor muscles a lot, almost straining them. And I've seen this again before, so that's not uncommon. If women have got kind of quite stressed, quite tired through the exercise, they're really, really holding on the whole time through exercise without relaxing them. And then the following day, they can feel those side effects of the strains there. So again, I'd probably, Neely, have a look to see if you can contract your pelvic floors, relax them. Think about the next time you work out. Are you relaxing or are you holding on all the time rather than maybe thinking of contracting your transverse and then relaxing those pelvic floors? If it's heavy weights, I'd definitely look at more of that strain possibly with the hypertonic pelvic floor muscles, but I'd definitely say it would be a great idea if you could get checked by your local health physiotherapist to help you out there as well and to give you that kind of more internal feedback as to what's going on, but also kind of just address what I've suggested there also. And if you want to add anything else, you are welcome to. Also, anybody else, and if you've missed the live today, please put down, please comment. We are running the No More Mummy Tummy Challenge at the moment, and Pause Fit Core. They are open for the day. Now you've got probably another 2.5 weeks with the program, so it's okay if you join those. Pause Fit Core is getting great reviews for those of you in your 40s. It's a great one. You're welcome, Neely. I hope some of that kind of related to you, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of food for thought as to when you're exercising, and let's see how we're going there. Also as well, our pelvic floor function does change with our menstrual cycles. So those of you who have regular menstrual cycles, you may find that you may have a little bit more leaking, more symptoms just before we kind of pre-menstruate. And then postpartum, again, this sees that drop in our estrogen levels prior to menstruation. So do be aware of that. Also, what some mums may find is we normally have coffee before we exercise to kind of lift us up, but a coffee before exercise may mean that we're going to leak a little bit because of that irritation, what I've just spoken about. So that was something what I used to do as well, is to make sure, tried my best to not have a coffee before I exercised. Okay, so I'm going to wrap that up now. Please, honestly, please share this video with your friends and family, because the more women that know this, like I say, 30 to 40% of women may have hypertonic pelvic floor muscles and they don't realize, and they're constantly contracting them, which is increasing those symptoms. I've had clients who've come to me who've had painful sex with the partners 7 to 8 months postpartum. We do a few relaxing exercises, and oh my God, within a few weeks, it's made such a difference. And you've got your life back and your partner's life back, which is incredibly important as well. And pelvic pain's gone too. Also manage stress, ladies, and just see how you're feeling through your exercise. So visit the website for all our programs. They're all on there, pregnancyexercise.co.nz, and keep following us here on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. All right, everybody, have a lovely weekend. We are going to be super busy weekend in New Zealand. We have general elections, main elections on, and we have the Rugby World Cup, where I'm focusing on the All Blacks and England. All right, everybody, take care. I will speak to you all soon. Bye, team.